Hello, my name is Derek from Tomcat Gas Training and welcome to part 3 on these videos on pipe bending. In today's video we're going to take the extension part from episode 2 and turn it into doing this. So let's get on with it. Now this is the bend we're going to produce. Okay, so we're going to produce one of these, but we're going to make it to fit over a box of 100mm high, 100mm wide, sorry, and 60mm high. So we're going to be doing a continuation, I can't find that one either, of the bend we made in part 2. Okay, but this time we're going to do it with 2 passovers. Okay. Now this is one I just found out of the scrapbook, so it's not one I've done, but there you go. Now, so I've got this box, 100mm by 60mm. Now I've got a piece of copper here, which is 600mm long. Well, it's actually 604mm long. So I've cut it in half, so we've got a centre mark there now of 300 that way and 300 that way. Now, because of the stretch of the copper, we have to do this in 2 ways. So we're actually going to produce like a pair of handlebars. Okay, so the first bends we're going to be doing are the 2 at the top. Okay, like we did in episode 2 where we pulled the first bend. Because of the stretch, that's the same thing we're going to do. Now, the first thing I've got to do is mark where I want my first bend to go. Okay, so we want our first bend to go right on the edge of the 100mm. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go all the way around. Now this is important that you go all the way around. So we're going to go all the way around on both marks. So we've got 100mm all the way around. Okay, now again I need to pull my 30-degree angles. Okay, so got my piece of copper again and I'm going to pull the 30-degree. Now it's exactly the same as what we did in episode 2 where we actually put it in the bender, mark it where the guide meets the former, and that's where we're going to pull it to the angle. So let's get on and pulling these 2 bends first. So notice this time I didn't make a cross in the centre, I actually made a mark on the actual pipe bender itself. So that is exactly where we want it. So again, stand it up and let's bend it, because we know that's the centre point. So just take off the pressure, make sure we've got our angle. Okay, so a little bit more, I would say, a little bit more to the centre. So that's our centre. Okay, so that is our 30-degree angle. Now I'm going to pull another angle exactly the same on the other side. So I'm just going to do a little cheat now, and I'm just going to mark here on the actual guide, on the former, sorry, on the other side, the 22mm former, I've just made a mark where the handle goes, and I'm going to pull to those 2 marks, and it should give me exactly the same distance on the other side. So I should now be able to pull to that line and to this mark. So let's have a look, see if it works out. So we're on the 2 marks now, and that should give us, again, let's just check and make sure that's not moved. That should give us, again, the 30 degrees. So it's not a million miles out. Now, that should be right on the marks where we made it, and ready now for our bends the other way. Now, like we did before, make sure we're on top of the lines. And again, I'm going to mark, looking over the top there, and looking over the top there, and then make sure I mark the centre on each side. So, next thing we've got to do now is we've got to bend these two angles this way. Okay, so let's get on with that. So I've put my mark back in the bender where it needs to be, and this time now I'm going to pull it, but I'm not going to pull it until now I get myself a straight edge and I can run it through the two marks. So we've got a mark here and the centre mark there. So we know on the guide it's there, and we know that's going to be our centre mark there. So this now should aid me to pull the correct angle, okay, for that first piece. So hopefully you can see that it's gone right the way through now. So on that mark there, and we're running parallel. We can now take this out of the bender and we can do the other side. So get the next pipe in the bender where it needs to be, somewhere around there. Again, stand it up and square it up, making sure it's somewhere near. And again, using our straight edge, we should be able to pull it through so it runs the same way. So centre to centre, a little bit more, and that should be somewhere close. So if we put that on the lines now, it's not a million miles out. I wouldn't say it's the most perfect bend I've ever produced in my life. So that's how we do a complete passover. Okay, so that's called a full passover. 30-degree angle with a block we're going over, okay, 100 mil. Now, next couple of bends we're going to be doing now is we're going to get slightly more complicated. So we're going to be producing a partial passover like this and a full passover, which will be continuing the pipe along there to a given measurement. So these are probably the two hardest bends you will ever do. So without further ado, let's get on with producing a partial passover first. Now, first thing is I've got a piece of pipe, 400 long. Okay, doesn't really matter about the length of the pipe at the moment, but 400 is going to help me to get it into the pipe bender. So the first thing I need to do is mark out the job what we're going to be doing. Now, the job is, we've got a piece of 28 mil. We've got, this is a hot water pipe, and the pipe we're bending is a cold water pipe, so we need 25 mil from the top of this pipe to the bottom of the pipe what we've got. So what I've done is, this is our finishing point, this is the starting point of our bend, which is 80 mil centre to centre from the bends, okay, and we've got this 25 mil above. So we've got this set triangle what we're going to try and produce, okay, so we're going to be going this way around. Now what I've done is I've drawn a line from centre to centre to give me some idea of the angle I require, because it's the angle what's the important bit, okay. So we've got the 28mm pipe, we're going to be passing over the top of it. So, first thing I need to do is find the angle of what I'm going to be producing, and the way I'm going to do that again is by using my trusty solder, even though I called it copper pipe before. Anyway, it's not, it's solder. So you can see from here I've kind of bent through the centre of each of the angles, the pipe, sorry, to get the angle. Okay, if we was to look at it on our little drawing, you can see it's between 60 and 90 degrees, so it's not quite 90 degrees the bend we're going to be pulling, and it's important that we use this angle, otherwise it ain't going to be working. So the first thing I've got to do is I'm going to place the pipe on the back side of the pipe, so, or where the pipe would be. Now this is just going to allow us some extra pipe to be able to cut it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try again keep my big fat head out of the way, because I'm going to also mark the back of the pipe here with my big thick marker pen. So just going to mark where the edge of the pipe is there. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way around because it makes it easier to go all the way around. Okay, so we've gone all the way around with our big black marker. So that is the distance what we're looking for. Okay, so that's our starting distance. Now, the next thing we're going to do is bring in our bender. Okay, so first thing we need to do is put our loose pipe in again and put in our guide just to keep the pipe in, and this is going to help us find the bending point of where we're going to bend. So we need to bring in our angle, and we're going to place the angle so it's on the edge of the pipe. So this is running parallel and it's on the edge of the guide here, well, the former here. So you can see our bending point is now going to be around here. Okay, so it's not quite that mark there, so it's about here, but not a million miles out. So what I have to do now is take this out, get my piece of pipe, place it in till it's going to be about here, the mark. So it's about there, and this is going to bend our centre of the pipe. Okay, so it wants to be around about there somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to pull this angle now. First of all, I'm going to, as usual, stand it up, just give it a bit of a kick just so it doesn't move, but I also want to make sure my angle's still the same, which it is. And I'm now going to bend this pipe to that angle. Okay, so it's just short of that mark there. So let's try that first. Once more. Kind of to that, a little bit more, but not much. Let's try that now. Well, the first thing is that mark should be in the centre of the bend, which, whoa, that's worked out okay so far. So our bending point was not a million miles out. Now we need to look at our angle, and we can see we're not far out on the angle as well. Now we're never ever going to get it perfect with this triangle. But this mark here needs to go onto the centre, onto the flat, and you can see now that that is pretty damn perfect where we want it. So the pipe's going through the centre there, it's running along the edge of the centre there, so we're pretty much where we want to be. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, like we've done with all the other bends, is we're going to mark this here. But if I mark it on this side, it's going to end up not being able to see the mark in the bender. So I need to flip it over. Now you know why I put this second circle here, because again, that's where we're going to end up going. So that is where, get my big fat head in the way. That's where we need to be. And what I need to do now is, as usual, mark across the line there. Okay, and mark the centre line. So we mark our cross again. So that's going to be our bending point again. Okay, when we put it back into the bender. So out comes our bender and our mark, and now we know the mark has to go onto the side of the guide there now. So we're going to be following that line. So it needs to be on the edge like that. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. Now again, I need to stand it up and square it up. Make sure it's in line with the handle again, otherwise I'll have a wonky bend. That's not a million miles out. Now then, the angle we're going to pull it. So we need to pull this so it runs parallel again through, because this is going to end up on the base of our line, so we're going to pull it through. So again, to get the right angle, we can go through the centre of the pipe there and run it through there to give us our angle. Now, hopefully that is the right angle we need for it to go straight across. Where we need to be with the angle. Okay, if we now put the piece of 28mm there and we get our steel rule and we measure and see if we are 25mm away, put it in the right spot, and you can see we are pretty much bang on. If we put it in the right spot, 25mm away. Okay, and if we hold that like that, you can see that's touching the floor. Okay, so that's touching the board, that's touching the board. So that's worked out exactly where we wanted to bend it. And that's our first partial passover with a 25mm above the pipes, 25mm above this 28mm pipe. Now, if we wanted to make a shallower angle with a smaller pipe, we would do exactly the same and it would come out with a lot shallow angle. I've just chosen this because it's easier to see being this big. But again, if we were making that smaller, then the angle could actually be less steep. Okay, or we could actually go steeper if we're higher. So that gives you some idea of the partial passover. Now let's do a full passover. Next bend we're going to produce is the full passover. Okay, and again we're going to do this to a given height. We're going to do pass over a 22mm pipe. So let's get on with that. Now, got a piece of pipe just under 400mm, and again I've put it in the centre. Now, angles again. We're only passing over 22mm pipe. Okay, so if I do a really steep angle, so 60 degrees, something like that, we could end up with the pipe being too tight to get in the bender. If we bent it at 30 degrees, then we could end up with it looking ridiculous. It could be too far away. So depending on what your offset needs to be, we're going to be using 45 degrees for this, around about 45 degrees, and see what it looks like, see what it comes out like. So what I've done now is I've got my, as usual, I've got my solder. It's not copper pipe, it's solder. and I've remarked on my board now a 45 degrees, so we can see that's 45 degrees. Now again, I've got my pipe, we've got the good old pipe bender, and again I'm going to put the pipe and find the actual bending point as usual. So again, this time I'm going to get my 45 degree, where's my black marker. Again, I'm going to put it on the edge, and again, my bending point is about there. Okay, so that's going to bend to round about the centre of the bend. So let's see if it works out. So I'll put my mark actually on the mark on the pipe, actually on the mark on the guide. And as usual, I'm going to stand it up. Don't need to square it up yet because it's one bend, and I'm going to bend it to the 45 degrees, which is around there. So that's not a million miles out of 45 degrees. Okay, now let's see if we were in the centre. A little out, nothing spectacular. Okay, now this is a 22mm pipe we're going over, and like we've done on all the others, what we need to do is we need to make a straight edge so it actually, we can mark it. But we need to mark it on both sides. That's the important bit, is marking it on both sides, and marking it on both sides accurately. So what I do is, we bring it to the edge of the table, and hopefully you're going to see this. So I'm going to try and balance this and keep out of the way of it. So we need to get it looking symmetrical with the end of the bench. Okay, when we're happy with that, again what we need to do is, as usual, we need to mark, again I'm moving this, but there you go, we need to mark across the bench, but we also need to use the edge of the bench to mark across the end. And we're going to do the same on the other side, so hopefully you can see it. And again, I'm going to mark down the edge. Okay, and again, I'm going to mark the centre of the pipe. And if we flick it over, we should have 2 marks on there. And we mark the centre of the pipe. And that's going to be our bending point on the mark we've made on the pipe bender. So let's bring the pipe bender back. And we're going to place that mark now on the mark on the bender, and you can see the hook or the stop is just about right where we want. If we'd done a different angle, we could have had the hook would have been in the wrong place. And again, as usual, I'm going to stand it up and square it up so we don't get a wobbly bend. So that looks something like, and again I'm just going to pull it a little bit so it doesn't move, and again we're going to use our straight edge to go through the centre of the guide, the former, sorry, and the centre of our mark, and pull that angle till it goes through the centre. Now, if we made the mark on the other side, we can now flip it over because the mark's there. Put it in the same place as before, so the centre of the mark on the former to match up with the pipe. And again, stand it up and square it up to make sure it's running straight. And now we can pull that angle to the same as the other one. So that should be something like that. So hopefully now that bend is flat and our 22mm pipe will pass just underneath it. So that is how you do a full passover to 22mm. And that is the end of our videos on copper pipe bending. So if you've liked this video, why don't you give us that thumbs up, because it shows me you care, or leave a constructive comment down below. If you want me to make any other videos, leave a comment down below and I'll try to do that. If you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, then get subscribing, and don't forget to hit that notification bell because I release videos every Wednesday. All I've got to say is thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and join me next Wednesday for the next video. Cheers guys!